You must have your director's permission to enter the building. Hi everyone. I recently executed a bit of malicious compliance that I thought I'd share with you. During COVID, we haven't been able to regularly access our office and have instead had to work from home. Most of my team are field-based anyway, so it hasn't been a huge problem. Next to our main office is a workshop, storage area that is managed and accessed only by my team. We use this to store equipment and materials and carry out some work in there. Typically 1 or 2 team members will be there each day, though it could be as many as 5. If staff are collecting and dropping off equipment, they might need 2 or more visits per day. On the rare occasion we do need to go into the main office, we have to get permission from a director. We would normally do this a few days in advance once we had a piece of work that required access. Without this permission, security won't let us in. As the offices are in a city center location, parking is expensive, but our employer will provide it in our own secure car park. To access this car park again, you also have to email for permission. At some point someone noticed that staff were requesting parking in the car park but not access to the main building. I was asked about this by the facility manager, as there was a concern that people were trying to get free parking for personal errands and not work. I explained that staff were carrying out work or collecting equipment from the store and I'd given them permission. I was told that this was unacceptable and only our director could give permission to access buildings. I decided the best way to prove my point was with a little malicious compliance. I did a few checks and saw that there was an almost immediate opportunity. I instructed my staff that they weren't to access the workshop, store unless they had permission. I said that I knew it was ridiculous, but I had a plan and everything would be sorted within a week. I also told them that for the next few days we would be catching up with all our mandatory training and odd jobs. I told staff if any requests for work came in to ask the customer to call back later in the week, and I would delay any new jobs being allocated for a few days. This all happened on the Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday were spent catching up on boring admin and e-learning, and then Friday arrives. I allocate jobs to staff and advise my team that if they need access to the workshop, store, then they must email for permission, and entering without consent could lead to disciplinary action. I advised that they should wait by the security desk at the main building until permission was granted. A few hours into the day I start getting emails from my staff saying they've needed access to the store and have emailed for permission but haven't heard back. I advised that they wait. After another hour or so I get an irate phone call from the facility manager asking what's going on. I explain that my staff aren't allowed in without permission and so they are waiting by security, so there are no allegations of them sneaking into the workshop. He asks why permission wasn't granted in advance, and I explain that the work requests had only come in on that day. He explains that the director is on leave and can't grant permission, but he could grant in his absence. I refused and said that only our director could give permission. I agreed to ask the staff to leave for home and to postpone their jobs. Monday rolled around and I got a phone call from the director. He'd received complaints from the facility manager and a few other senior managers about the situation. Thankfully, he realized how ridiculous the situation was and said he'd only agreed to keep the facility manager quiet. It was clear that I'd orchestrated the situation, but the director was willing to take the blame for the issue. The decision was reversed and now staff don't need permission. One other plus point is that I've stopped receiving email reminders about my team members' training being out of date. I've stopped receiving email reminders about my team members' training being out of date. That's some awesome synergy there. You have a really down-to-earth director. Well done. Op. It's so sweet when you can turn a facility manager's brutal policies around until it becomes their problem and not yours. Then wow. The policy gets changed. I used to have a job in a building that had a couple dozen badge-accessed doors. My job required access to 5 areas, but there were times I had to get into other areas for a few days. Temporarily. At that time the facility manager, FM, was quite authoritarian and would make me get a couple sign-offs each time just to give me a temporary badge only good for those areas. And this was time-consuming for me. Tracking down 3 different people in person to get a sign-off, then to physically get the badge. Then when I didn't need that special access anymore, I had to return the badge. About the 4th time I needed access somewhere new temporarily, I went to get the sign-offs. My manager was kind of tired of this and asked me why the FM couldn't just program my badge to have access rather than this elaborate game. I said sure, he could. Plus he could at any time pull up a list of everywhere my badge was used. My manager asked me for a list of places I might ever need to go, so he would just authorize me for permanent access. He directed the FM to program my badge for access to the list of places and told FM he was done signing off on these short-term requests. And if the FM ever had concerns about where I had been, he could just look it up in his system. FM had to comply, but he was frosty to me after that. A year later, the company is hosting a college group on a weekday evening so they could see what we do. 5 or 6 company people, including me, are acting as chaperones, hosts. At one point, our head guy wanted to show the group our integration lab. Badge-controlled door. None of the others had a badge that had access except me. So it was all good. Next week my manager tells me FM called him saying he saw that I accessed the lab one evening, and he had concerns about why I had to be in there off hours. Apparently he had all this time been looking at where I went, just waiting to catch me abusing my access privileges. Manager told FM wasn't that the evening the college group was here? Didn't you, as FM, authorize that group to be here and sign off on where they could and could not go? Wasn't it a good thing that we had somebody who could get us into the lab and not ruin the event? Since you, as FM, didn't stay for the event? And that was the last time I ever heard a peep out of FM about me. Just to be clear, this was not a place where there was any real reason to have such draconian access controls. It was all due to FM's control freak issues. I love it when a plan comes together. When I was put on remote operations without any actual stuff to do, catching up on mandatory training was one of the things I filled my time with. How many hours of things like diversity and sensitivity training do I need? Apparently more than 4. Eventually, I had stuff to do, but no instructions on how to do it. After a couple of weeks of winging it, I finally got instructions. That didn't work at all. Websites were not found. Passcodes were out of date. Some of the processes had changed so much by the time I got them that I wound up creating the instructions and scripts from scratch by myself. It's a good thing too, because a colleague had to take over for me for a while. And if he only had the standard instructions, he would have been floundering. But that's what you do for coworkers. You help them out. We also had to have special permission to be physically present on our business's complex, and had to be medically cleared before we could arrive. My office used to serve anywhere from 200 to 500 walk-in customers per day. Now we're down to maybe 30 in a day. But without walk-ins. Only by special appointment. Why do they care if people are using work parking for personal errands anyway? Are they doing anything else with the parking spots? Good one up, well played for that MCI needed tee laugh. Well done on your MC. The training catch-ups were a very good bonus to that. That's some outstanding leadership, right there. I congratulate you. An actual malicious compliance. Well done. TL. Doctor. Our supervisor conspired with the facility manager to get us locked out of the building. Now we're stuck at home, forced to do all the mandatory training that we've been ducking. City center parking, is this in Portland? How come when you try to have a reasonable conversation about policies and procedures that you're usually dismissed? Then, you later have a situation that exposes the policy for being ridiculous and people get mad at you? I know the answer is that people don't want to do their job or change their protocol. But hey, people rain on my perfect plans every day. Put on your big boy pants. The director was willing to take the blame for the issue. That doesn't sound real. Seems like you found a great way to waste your team's time and gas to drive into work for nothing. Edit. For your personal gain. Do we work for the same company? Sounds like my employer's facilities. Jesus, do people actually read posts this long?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.